Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. And this gives us an opportunity to wrap up the week and wrap up the month with a conversation that's necessary, in my opinion. Before we start that, however, let's talk to you about the KCB Foundation 2G Jury program. You often wonder, does everybody who enters the job market have an opportunity at a job? Does everybody who enters into the market have an opportunity at starting business? Well, the truth of the matter is no. And you ask why? Well, it's because sometimes folks don't have the skills and the talents that they need to be. They do have the talent, they don't have the skills because they've not received enough training. Now, KCB Foundation, under the 2G Jury program, has seen this gap and they said, you know what, let's help you to fill it. Let's give you the skills and the talent that you need over a 6-month program. Come out of that program, let's give you a toolkit and a little bit of, startup money for you to start your business or the connections for you to be able to enter into the job market proper. So there are very many sectors. There's, construction, beauty and design, photography, and basic mechanics and engineering. It goes on and on and on in terms of what people have been able to do. So far, 155,000 people have gone through the program and hoping to do more. Between the ages of 18 and 35, you can actually sign up for this program and start to see how you can benefit from the skills program and get into a job or a business that you would want to. Find out more information, kcbgroup.foundation, and get as much information as you could. All right. We're getting into a session. As we do that, CT, remind us about today's proverb, and then Mark can tell you now if his opinion from 6 a.m. has changed now at 9.
Sure. That depends on whether he has a headache or not.
All right.
Okay, we are still in the Republic of Tanzania, but let me just say this. This is one interesting country. People keep hearing that, it has overtaken Kenya as a country that has the biggest economy in this region. Actually, if you're talking about the country with the biggest economy, forget what we measure and the terms we used to measure. It's actually DRC. It's not Tanzania or Kenya. It's actually DRC. It's a different story. But as to overtaking us, it overtook us a long time ago. We're only realizing now.
Who's that? Tanzania?
Yes. It overtook us a long time ago. We're just figuring it out now because they're a little silent about it and they don't make too much noise, as we do. The proverb. Mm-hmm. Maybe your canoe is bigger. No, actually it's my canoe. Maybe my canoe is bigger than yours, but the sea is the same. Mm-hmm. Same water, same everything. If there is no fish, we both go hungry.
Mm-hmm. So have I changed my mind? No.
Okay.
to be assassinated as the doctor, because at the end of the day, God makes it rain on the wicked and on the righteous.
This is true. Mm-hmm. So the sea, if it has fish or not, the boat... If it doesn't have any fish and your boat is bigger than mine, none of us are getting the fish.
Read your Bible properly.
None of us are getting the fish.
There are some people in the biblical history who had been fishing the whole night and nothing had happened.
Yeah.
Then Peter,
James and John.
They fished and fished. They only fished the net. Then Jesus appeared and told them, guys, just this net. Put on the other side.
You wonder, though, that when they were doing that, did they actually not the whole night? Because think about the whole night.
Yeah.
From about maybe 8 p.m. until about 4 or 5 in the morning. Mm. The fellas never thought to put the net on the other side of the boat.
Mm-hmm. Or the fish never thought. Maybe it's the fish that never showed
to move in the direction that they were told.
Okay.
So this is one of those situations where you are allowed to ask as many questions as you like, and you're allowed to come up with whatever response you think is suitable. After all, it's Friday.
Okay. In that case, how about we talk to the president? Dear Mr. President, as the one who holds position as executor of issues in this country, as executor of programs in this country, as executor of policies in this country, essentially the CEO of the nation, there are some things that perhaps we can bring to your attention today that need you to engage. We're not reminding you because the hope is that you remember. There is a lot going on in the country today. we wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of the things that require your urgent attention and action. While we realize that it is a gargantuan task to lead a nation of any size and of any population, the attention to detail in some of these cases does require your rapt attention. We want to start with abductions and death. Dear Mr. President, unfortunately yesterday, another 2 young men were found dead. We don't know how they died. We just know that many weeks ago they were abducted. We don't know what happened to them. We do not know who killed them. We do not know who took them in the first place. In addition to that, dear Mr. President, 2 more men are still missing that we know of. And we do not know where they are. We do not know who took them. We do know that those that you have appointed in positions of security also say that they do not know, and they do not know who took them or where they are. This worries us a little bit, Mr. President, because if those who have been given the positions to guard the security and livelihoods of Kenyans are none the wiser, it puts us in a bit of a scary situation, because then we have to ask questions. Dear Mr. President, the rate at which Kenyans, young, old, male, female, are disappearing is worrisome, and the ask is that you do something about that. Dear Mr. President, sadly, over 1 million children went back to school in January. We know what the budget is for education, dear Mr. President. It's upwards of 600 million shillings. But sadly, capitation has not been sent in completion to schools. 64 billion shillings is what is owed in capitation for over 5 years. And this year is adding to that number. Dear Mr. President, we've been in school now for almost a month, and capitation is yet to be released from Treasury. A man who you appointed not too long ago, and with Parliament passed, I think is grappling with issues. I'm going to do another one, dear Mr. President. Dear Mr. President, the debt in this country, the debt that Kenya owes, is so high that for every 100 shillings that this country makes, 70 shillings of that goes towards paying debt. This is a question, dear Mr. President, because how will you use 30 shillings to cater for development? How will you use 30 shillings to send your children to school? How will you use 30 shillings to take care of their healthcare needs? How will you use 30 shillings to make sure that infrastructure is up to scratch? Dear Mr. President, we have a list of questions to ask you this morning, but we'll start with those 3. Mark?
In school, there's something called a syllabus. What syllabus does is that it measures how quickly a student can learn and absorb new information. Kenya has students. We've become students because we need to deal with new tax regimes. And before we know it, we need to deal with a new university funding model. Ghafla Binvu, we need to deal with Shashif and Taifa Care. Before we are done with that, we are changing our foreign policy. Before we've settled, the State House has changed how the roof looks like. While we're still breathing, Rigathi Gachagua is no longer deputy president, and he's commander-in-chief of the rebels against the presidency. Before we are done, there's NSSF, which is going up another 2,000 shillings. Dear Mr. President, it is no longer for me about how hard things are. It is a fact that psychologically we are finding it hard to cope. Good ideas, bad ideas, does not matter. But the psychology of the public needs to be taken at pace. Please slow down and tell us what is a Shah and what is a Shif and what is a Taifa Care. Let's slow down and tell everybody why 2,000 shillings more on SSF is not just a cut on our salaries, but is a net benefit to our nation. Let us slow down a bit more and ask ourselves whether 38% for high-income earners is a good amount to pay for tax. Let's have a conversation, not just about the debt, but about what should we expect from our government. What do we get? Tell us from our own selfish perspective, what should we expect to better our lives, fill our tummies, and give our children hope?
Dear Mr. President, your tray is full. This is not a litany of complaints or a wish list. It is a realization of what we have gone through as a citizenry, and we've juxtaposed it with questions that were asked and requests made to the citizenry. One was, give us more time. Time has been given, and time keeps being given. What should we expect in return for the time that we've given? Even as more time is asked for, what can we expect for more of this time that is given? Because the reference point here is time will ensure that the things we seek will be seen. The things we seek will be made manifest. Can we speak of the things that have been made manifest so far? Because there is discordance as to what we say. There's discordance to what your government tells us it has done. Can we find symmetry so that what has been done and what we see is the same? The changes that we have seen, which purportedly ought to bring about the very desired results that we seek. We've seen reshuffling of cabinet. There's now a promise of reshuffling of principal secretaries. How exactly will this bring about the change that we desire? There's talk about cabinet secretaries who were not performing well, principal secretaries who have not met the desired goals and the demands and the mandate of their offices. How sure can we be that those who then take their places will then take us to this land that was promised? How do we know and how can we be certain that they will not perform in the same manner in which those who preceded them have? And how will we be certain that we will not yet again be met by another call for a reshuffle to try and achieve the same goals that were promised would be achieved and yet were not achieved? We seek to understand how it is that by creating new coalitions and giving them new names and new terminology will again help us to achieve the goals that your government promised would be achieved. I speak, Mr. President, of broad-based government. I speak, Mr. President, of appointing new state officials in positions of authority. And I speak of how exactly these new faces are supposed to bring about changes that the immediate former old faces were not able to achieve. The country needs clarity, and the country needs to be certain that their livelihood takes precedence, their lives take precedence, the future of their children takes precedence, the matters of their health takes precedence, the matters of education takes precedence, and that the cost of simply living in the country takes precedence in your government. And this needs to be made manifest in word as well as deed.
Even as we do, and we know that, certain thoughts are going out, the question is that, do you think it's too much responsibility on the shoulders of the president to handle what we see every day?
There's something new that really, really worries me. And it crystallized for me when one Kabogo, newly minted CS, instead of speaking matters ICT, the statement that was going around was a political statement.
It was attributed to him, or was it a recording of what he said?
It was a recording of what he said,
Okay.
right? And it was political. Now, notwithstanding of what he said, that's not the subject of what I want to speak about. I want to speak about that for once in this country, the issue is not politics. The issue is delivery. Kenyans want to see from the cabinet and the president himself results of the things they promise. So one of the things is, I do not think that it is hard to deliver on these things. I don't think so. And President William Ruto has shown his immense capacity to use his intellectual and organizational skill to deliver the win he got in 2022. That same skill can be harnessed to move away from the question of politics. And in fact, Siti said it very well. You do not need to respond to Rigathi Gachagua. If today we had a better airport, who would remember Adani? If Shashif today was working as everyone expects, there would be no issue. I think the key thing is there's too much focus on the politics, and the government needs to go back and deliver and speak to us about that delivery, because there's not a Kenyan alive who does not want that delivery. Now, the question about your proverb. If Kenya has a GDP of 110 billion Kenya shillings, it means the sea upon which we fish, you can only catch 110 billion fish, and everyone else will have nothing. Therefore, it is important that the sea that we call the Kenyan economy be expanded so that when we fish, we can mint new, bespangled, as you said, millionaires and billionaires.
Do you think there's a desire to have these things done? I think that if there was, well, not just have them done, but then have them done properly. I want to start with the abductions and death. Some of the things that we've mentioned. That one Kenyan.
You want to find out if the abductions were done properly?
No. I'm talking about the security that's supposed to be upheld. Let's start with that area. So now, if we say that one Kenyan who's been abducted, one Kenyan who showed up dead, have you heard to date those who've been abducted and then they turn up on the side of the road somewhere, that there has been an inquiry into or an investigation into what happened to them? Have we heard anything so far? Or am I jumping the gun here? Have we heard that something has been done? Somebody has taken and said, look, we want to know who took you, where did you go? Have we heard that from the police service there have been investigations into what happened? Or must we wait for these individuals to bring themselves to the police and say, find out what happened to me? Have we heard anything like that so far? The gentlemen that turned up dead, okay, somebody killed them. Their bodies were found yesterday and they had been missing prior to that. Can we hear, or will we know, that investigations will be done into their murders? Because it's highly unlikely from what we see that they took their own lives. Will we see that there's an investigation into that? Or will we see a lackluster approach to dealing with issues? Because it is the same thing that we see. It's the same thing that we see whereby you don't send capitation, you don't deal with an ailing system. It's the same thing. You also don't deal with a threat like that, where it's very possible for any Kenyan to be picked up at any time, anywhere, and be kept for days, weeks on end, and then unfortunately they turn up dead. It's the same attitude that you're applying across board, whether it would be send capitation, whether it would be make sure your system is working. Okay, yeah, we'll deal with it when we get to it. When is that? And that's why we're saying, dear Mr. President, these things need to be handled. And guess what? They don't need billions of shillings to be able to get them done. It's an application of attitude here, in my opinion. The people, the centralness that you put in place to get things done are essentially not. What is required to have this done? What value are we placing on the importance of some of these things? Is it very, very difficult? Is it difficult to do?
Ask the question, though, that I'm asking the question. Are we trying to normalize abductions? Are we trying to normalize the continued reduction of budgeted capitation to schools? The things that we speak about, are we normalizing them? Because if we speak on an issue and citizens speak on an issue and they require, desire, and speak of change, and there is no change forthcoming, a similar occurrence visits us, more speaking is directed to it, and the result is the same. I then have to ask the question, are we trying to normalize these situations? And if so, to what end?
You know, the analytical part of my brain tells me that there are either of two situations. One, that it is true that the police are abducting and are somehow responsible for these unfortunate circumstances. And then that means you've got to ask institutions such as IPOA, the Office of the DPP, the DCI themselves, as to whether they are investigating their own to bring this to justice, right? Now, for the people who have been abducted and let go, then you'd imagine that they will need to file a case for them to be able to be investigated. There needs to be a complainant in that matter. But when someone turns up unalived, then the state itself should take up that matter. Now, if the police are not the ones, then we must conclude that we have a serial killer. Right?
A serial killer, we have serial killers.
Yes, because we remember the dump site that had 13, 14, 15 bodies, can't remember exactly.
Yeah, what they turned up.
And then every other 2 weeks, we've got someone who was taken away, no ransom asked for, family not informed, and then they turn up dead. Either way, the police needs to give the public an answer, because if they don't, not only are they normalizing something that is very abnormal, but they're also heightening the fears in society. That speaks to the curriculum I was talking about. But number two, and this is my bigger fear, if you use your biggest punishment tool against your children, and then it becomes ineffective, what do you do next? The worst thing you can do to a human being is to abduct them and to have them killed. My question is, have you seen the Gen Z? Do they look moved? So as you pull the highest form of punishment you can, and it's not affecting the people you want it to affect, you must ask yourself, when they retaliate, what will they do?
But should you, the question is, and we're going to go to a break in a bit, but the question is, should you actually be fighting your own people? Should you be in that case? Because this is all based on the assumption that it is police or that it is security forces within Kenya that are abducting Kenyans, right? Should you actually be, and I'm trying to be prescriptive here, that you want to listen to what your people are telling you. Kenyans are almost wanting you to do better. Not almost. Kenyans want you to do better. They're urging you and saying, please, hear what it is that we are saying. Please do better. Essentially, do better. We're saying that, when it comes to the lives of people who have to deal with, being picked up and taken away, we're saying, don't do it. We want you to do better. Kenyans want to be in a situation where they applaud you, even if it is your job, for you to be able to say, yes, your children went to school. Yes, you have universal healthcare and is actually working. And that people can go to hospital because they paid a premium. They can go to hospital, get treated, and walk out without adding another cent. People want to make sure that the business environment is conducive for them to be able to thrive. People want to make sure that they can actually take their goods from farm to market, make a profit, pay their taxes, and keep it moving. People want a system of transport that makes it possible for them not to have their own vehicle, that it is sufficient and efficient. People want to be able to see that being done and then say, actually, yes, we want you to do better. We're not interested in the politicking of all of this. We're not interested in the antics of corruption. We're not interested in all these other things that you're doing where everybody is trying to see who can make sure that they come back on the ballot. Kenyans are not interested. Kenyans are trying to survive the day. And the person that is going to allow them do that in a manner that does not take food out of their mouths is what they're even more interested in. Dear Mr. President, Kenyans want you to do better.
Dreaming of shopping online from the biggest stores in the US and Europe? Now, it's easier than ever to get those items delivered to Kenya. Shop your favorite brands on websites like Amazon, eBay, and Zara. Then sit back and relax. We'll deliver right to your doorstep in Kenya. Rapid Courier has partnered with Standard Courier to enable you to shop globally and get your purchases delivered locally, anywhere in Kenya. Our fast and reliable delivery service ensures your items arrive safely, right to your door. Sign up today and start shopping online from the US and Europe. With delivery to Kenya made easy. Shop global, delivered to Kenya. Sign up today on rapidgroup.com and start shopping globally.
Gouverneur Kibando Longidi. Sayombe.
Mato Sibur.
Inasemaga, this is a city of order, dignity and opportunity. We have to have dignity for kila mtu, opportunity kwa kila mtu, but kukuwe na strategy mzuri wenye watu watafanya kazi na kukuwe na uwiano mzuri. Tukishirikiana sisi wote, kila mtu anaamkanga kutafuta ndio alisa watoto wake. Kama kutakuwa na kuelewana kuzuri na mikakati mizuri, watu wa matatu wakiambiwa ni matatu bili ama matatu zitasemekana, na sisi tuambiwe tuweke kazi pande ile na pande hii, tuachie njia katikati, we are ready to comply. Juu kila mtu analisa family na hakuna mtu wako hapa kuumiza mwingine.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And I really hope my president hears me on this. There's a gift that this country has been given. In 2017, 18, 19, the youth of this country had no idea what their civic duty was. They had no idea even what they wanted for this country. Today we speak of a young people who are scrutinizing everything and trying to find the best way to do it. Now, there are two ways you can take it. You can take it as though they are rebelling, or you can take it that for once in this country, after a long time, I think only Kibaki saw this, there's positive tension between the government and the people. What do I mean positive tension? That the people are demanding that the government does better, delivers better, and they've become literally the people who tell the government, listen, there is something wrong here, please fix. And one of the things and one of the fixes that I think this country can quickly have is when that dialogue you're talking about, Ndu, begins to happen, is that when the government listens to the people, then it becomes Fox Populi, Fox Day. The voice of the people is the voice of God. This country actually, in the 3 years to 2027, can actually turn around and do amazing things. Why? Because number one, the people will be oversighting it. Number two, there'll be agreement of purpose. There's no better public participation than that. And number three, for once, we will be happy with the results of what we are doing because we did it collectively. And that is why it is so critical that the government shifts from looking at the tension that is being brought by the people as an opposition to them, but rather a cue for them to follow, because the Constitution says the people are sovereign.
We want to hear from you as well. What do you want to tell your president this morning? I mean, there has been a lot of complaint, and rightly so, that, you know, because you're in a democratic space, the thought is that people can actually tell you how they feel about what it is that you do, or in some cases, don't do. So talk to us this morning on 0719-012-600. Tell your president what it is that you see going on that perhaps he doesn't, or that he hasn't heard you. What is the one thing that you want him to do? And I say listen, because listen then means that at some point you then act. Is it enough to shuffle a cabinet? Is it enough to bring friends from the opposition onto your side? Is it enough to say it and not do it? Is it enough? Is it enough? Is it enough to move people around? But we're saying, can we see actually the things that you say you were going to do actually be done? I think that's all Kenyans want. It's interesting because I've been to I've been around this continent, and I'm going to tell you for free, Kenyans take a lot. Though there's a word and it has escaped my mind right now, but Kenyans are a very accommodating people that you can push them to the wall and they'll say, push me into the wall even further, because they'll take it. And I'm saying, don't take that accommodativeness for granted. Because even the most accommodating person can get to the wall and they'll say, this one, I'm going to turn around and face you. And I think in many instances, that's where Kenyans have reached. Basically, for me, just do the things you said you were going to do and do them well. I don't see a Kenyan who would say, you know what, we'd rather take the person who said they were going to do what they were going to do over somebody else who promised us, who gave us lofty promises in the sky.
You know, the difficulty in understanding change is something that every human being grapples with. There's an even greater difficulty in realizing that the biggest change agent is actually yourself. That when you desire change from other people, perhaps you should consider changing yourself, because that is a far easier proposition than changing someone else. And the reason why that proposition makes sense is when you change, you force those seeking to talk about change on your behalf to change, because they will then be dealing with someone different. When somebody changes the way they respond to you and the way they relate to you, you will also change. If the change is positive, the response will also be positive. If the change is not considered to be positive, then the response will also tally and follow what it is that has been presented. It is a very fortunate leadership who have the privilege of listening to their employers, pleading with them instead of giving them instructions. In a democracy, the employer is a citizenry who is also the voter. When they speak, and they speak in various tongues, and they speak in various forums, and they speak in various platforms about the same thing, the commonality of what it is that they desire can no longer fall into the category of something you need to guess, because it is crystal clear you have been told. And it is a fortunate thing that one has the opportunity to see, to listen, and then take the mantle of contemplating and determining the best way forward. Privileges of this nature are given, and whatever is given can be taken away. It is a really simple fact. Leadership cannot exist in a vacuum. There have to be people who are led. In a democracy, people who are led will expect themselves to be led in accordance and in concordance with a constitution that they have, because it is their constitution and it is what they wanted. So they spoke well ahead of time. Compliance with that particular constitution or that particular document is all a citizenry asks for. A non-compliance will be called out. That which does not meet the needs that they expected will be called out. It is not meant to be negative. It is just, you have strayed. This is the path that we would wish you to follow. And the path that you're following is a path we do not wish you to follow because it doesn't serve our interest. And if it doesn't serve our interest, it also doesn't serve your interest.
Do you think too much? I'm going to ask this question again. Do you think too much responsibility is being placed on the shoulders of the president?
It is not possible for that to happen for the simple reason that the president does not function alone in a country. The Constitution provides a body of individuals who are citizens of this very country, whose mandate and job is to look at the diversified ways in which they can help the president and the presidency run the country. Start with the deputy president, principal assistant, then advisor. Then go down to the cabinet secretaries, whom we call ministers. Then go down to the principal secretary. Just keep going down, and at every level. Then look at the other leaders who are elected, and look at the two-tier parliamentary system that we have.
47 governors.
All these things we have actually taken care of, looking at this thing from the level that you would refer to as a national level, and at the level where whatever it is that you sought to have is brought to you at the level and closest to you. It's called a county government. No, it is not too much.
It's not too much.
No.
You know, when Spice FM calls me and says, "Hey, Mark, would you like to guest host for a week?" And I say yes. I cannot on Friday come and say, "Hey, CT, this is too much." When you applied for the job of the presidency, it was not the first time a presidency was being voted for
in this country.
Two, the issues that this country has, there is none that is new. Okay? Therefore, it is a job you applied for. In fact, actually paid money for, because you have to pay IEBC to apply for this job. Got thousands of signatures to agree with you. So yes, one, there was an agreement, and it's a social contract as well, that you would do a certain job. Then there's a legal and constitutional agreement. And then third, other people have done it before. You know, Moi did it through a coup. Kenyatta Senior did it through independence. Mwai Kibaki did it through 2007. Uhuru Kenyatta did it through 2020 and COVID. At the end of the day, those circumstances were more difficult than where we are today.
So then, we can still come back then, in that case, and say, dear Mr. President, sadly, a lot of the things that you deal with today are things that happened even before you came into the presidency. But we still have to bring them up because under your watch, they're still going on. Dear Mr. President, the fact of the matter remains that many, many women in this country who are with child have to suffer the issues of maternal death because they've been compromised in a situation whereby they can't give birth in a hospital because the Linda Mama program was removed. We are still dealing with that and grappling with that. We don't know where to find reprieve for that because now, even with this new universal health time for care, sadly, there are too many bugs in the system and it is not working. Dear Mr. President, your people in this nation who are sick are saying, please, can the system work properly? Maybe you need to whip up the folks who are responsible for making sure the system works to actually make sure that it works. Dear Mr. President, there are parts of this country where the roads don't exist. There are parts of this country where people farm and are not able to take their product to